Welcome back to the show. We are calling this Reformed Thinking. And if you are a regular listener, well, you know the drill.
You know what we do here.
Right. We take a huge stack of sources, sermons, heavy theological commentaries, essays, and we try to wring them out like a wet towel.
Just to get every single drop of insight we can.
Yeah, we aren't here to just skim the surface.
Mm-hmm.
We want to understand what is actually going on in the text.
And we have a pretty heavy one today.
We really do. We are taking a deep dive into John chapter 15, verse 5. I am the vine, you are the branches.
A classic.
It is. And I have to admit, when I first saw this on the schedule, I thought, okay, this is the nice, comforting verse.
A coffee mug verse.
Right. It was the one my grandmother had cross-stitched and hung up in her kitchen. It feels very safe.
Yeah.
Very pastoral.
It definitely feels that way on the surface. But the sources we are looking at today take a very different angle.
A much sharper angle.
Yeah. They argue that this isn't just a comforting pastoral image. It is actually a verdict. It is a gavel coming down on the human ego.
A verdict. I mean, that is a really strong word to use for a verse about gardening.
It is the only word that fits once you look at the context. If you really read what Jesus is saying here, he is completely dismantling the way we naturally think about ourselves.
He is taking the modern worldview and flipping it upside down.
Flipping it on its head.
So let's start right there. Because we live in a culture that has a very specific script for how life works. I was walking through an airport bookstore the other day, and I stopped to look at the business and self-help section.
I can only imagine the titles.
Oh, they were all saying the exact same thing. Unleash the giant within, the champion in you. Manifest your destiny.
Is the air we breathe in our culture.
It really is. I even saw an ad for a fitness app that literally said, everything you need is already inside you.
Which sounds great.
It does.
Yeah.
It feels good. It makes me feel capable and strong. So why is that such a problem?
Well, it is a problem because it is a lie. A very flattering lie, but still a lie.
Sociologists call it expressive individualism.
Right, but theologically, it is just the ancient error of self-reliance. The underlying idea is that the human self is a battery.
Okay, a battery.
Yeah, like you come into the world charged up, or maybe you have a generator humming inside you. And if you just crank it hard enough, if you just dig deep enough into your own soul, you can produce the life you want.
So when I hit a wall, the cultural advice is always just try harder.
Try harder or look within.
Look to your own truth.
But what happens when you look within and you just find fear? Or you find weakness?
Or you find that you actually do not have the resources to handle the cancer diagnosis.
Or the divorce, or some massive moral failure. That is the exact moment the self-help gospel completely collapses.
It crushes you.
Because it tells you that you are God, and frankly, you make a terrible God.
And that is the setup for John 15.
That is the core conflict. We really have to set the scene here, because this isn't Jesus giving a pleasant daytime seminar on a sunny Tuesday afternoon.
This is the upper room.
Or maybe they have just left the room and are walking through the dark toward the Garden of Gethsemane. But either way, it is the night before he dies.
The atmosphere must have been incredibly tense.
Tense does not even begin to cover it. Jesus knows everything that is coming.
He knows Judas has already sold him out.
Right. He knows Peter, bold, loud, confident Peter is going to deny him before the sun even comes up.
And he knows the rest of the disciples are just going to scatter.
Like frightened children into the night.
So if you are a leader in that situation, what do you naturally do? Conventional wisdom says you give a pep talk.
You build them up.
You say, guys, I know it looks bad right now, but I believe in you. You have what it takes to get through this. Dig deep.
You are strong. You are capable. Don't give up.
But Jesus does the exact opposite of that.
He looks at these men whose courage is about to completely evaporate, and he gives them a brutal reality check.
He says, I am the vine, you are the branches.
Apart from me, you can do nothing.
Nothing.
He strips them of their autonomy right there on the spot. He tells them, essentially, you think you have a tank of gas inside you. You do not.
You don't even have an engine.
You are a branch, and a branch that isn't connected to the trunk is just a dead stick on the ground.
That is genuinely offensive. I mean, nobody likes to be told they're completely helpless.
It goes against everything.
From kindergarten up, we are taught you can be whatever you want to be.
It insults our pride, and that is why the gospel is always offensive before it is comforting.
We always want to bring something to the table.
We want to be partners with God. The mindset is, God does his part and I do my part. We split the work.
But this text says, no, this is about union with Christ.
Union with Christ. That is the center of the target here.
It is a heavy theological term.
It is, but it is vital. The sources we are using today are very aligned with the Westminster Confession, which points out that our sanctification, our growth in holiness, isn't us getting stronger and needing Jesus less over time.
It is the opposite.
It is us realizing we never had any strength to begin with.
So the goal isn't to eventually graduate from the vine. The goal is to get stuck to it.
Permanently grafted to it. That is literally the only hope we have.
Okay, I want to dig into the imagery itself. Because Jesus didn't just pick a vine at random.
No, he didn't.
He didn't look out the window, spot a plant, and say, oh, look, a vine. That works for an analogy.
He is speaking to Jewish men who knew their Bible inside and out.
So when he says, I am the vine, that had to trigger something very specific for them.
It triggered 1,000 years of national history. You have to understand, the vine wasn't just an agricultural crop for ancient Israel.
It was their national symbol.
What was like the American eagle or the British lion.
It was actually stamped on their coins, wasn't it?
It was everywhere. In fact, Josephus, the first-century Jewish historian, tells us that on the front of the Herodian temple, which was standing right there in Jerusalem at that moment, there's a massive, solid gold vine.
It's a golden vine over the temple doors.
Huge. It was an absolute marvel of the ancient world. People would donate pure gold just to add a single leaf or a little cluster of grapes to it.
Wow.
It represented Israel's identity as God's chosen people. The mindset was, we are the vine that God himself planted.
So they looked at that golden vine and felt pride.
Security.
Ultimate security.
Yeah.
We are the people, we have the law, we have the temple, we are the planting of the Lord.
But there is a dark side to this imagery in the Old Testament too. And the disciples would have definitely known this.
You were talking about the prophets. Isaiah 5.
Isaiah 5, Psalm 80, Jeremiah 2. The prophets keep bringing up this vine imagery, but it is never a happy story when they do.
No, it is a tragedy.
Yeah.
In Isaiah 5, God sings a song about his vineyard. He says, I dug it up, I cleared the stones, I planted the choicest vine.
I built a watchtower.
He did everything right. He cultivated it perfectly.
He gave them every possible advantage.
Proximity, privilege, divine revelation. And then he says, I looked for it to yield grapes, but it yielded wild grapes. Now, wild grapes sounds almost romantic, like rustic and natural.
The Hebrew word there is much harsher. It is closer to stinking things.
Stinking things.
Putrid, rotten berries, sour, totally inedible fruit. God is saying, I gave you absolutely everything, and you gave me injustice in return.
You gave me idolatry.
You gave me empty, dead religion.
So the history of Israel is essentially the history of a failed vine.
That is right. It is a vine that turned degenerate. Jeremiah chapter 2 literally calls them a degenerate wild vine.
So let's fast forward to the night before the crucifixion.
Jesus stands there, maybe even walking past the shadow of that very temple with the massive golden vine, and he says, I am the true vine.
The Greek word there is alethinos, right?
Alethinos, yes. It means genuine, real, the actual substance.
The reality instead of the shadow.
He is saying, Israel was the shadow. I am the reality. Israel totally failed to produce fruit. I will succeed where they failed.
That is a massive theological claim. He is basically replacing the entire nation with himself.
He is completely recentering the people of God. This is a monumental shift in redemptive history.
Up until this specific moment, if you wanted to be right with God, you had to be part of the nation of Israel.
You had to be connected to the land. You needed the temple. You needed the ethnic heritage.
You had to be a branch on the Israel vine.
Right. But Jesus is announcing that old vine is withered. It is done. I am the new living source of covenant life.
So geography doesn't matter anymore? Ethnicity doesn't matter at all?
Only connection to him matters now. The location of God's people is no longer on a map. It is a person.
If you are in him, you are in the vine.
If you are not in him, it does not matter if you have the literal blood of Abraham in your veins. It does not matter if your grandfather was a famous preacher.
You are a dead stick.
You are cut off.
That brings up a crucial distinction from our sources. The difference between external association and organic union.
Organic union, that is the key phrase we need to grasp.
Explain how that works with the branches.
Well, you can take a dead branch off the ground and physically tie it to a living vine with a piece of twine.
It might look like it belongs there from a distance.
It might hang in the right spot on the trellis, but there is zero actual life flowing into it.
That is the person who goes to church every Sunday, sits in the usual pew, sings the familiar hymns, but has no actual heart connection to Christ.
They are tied on, but they aren't grafted in. And because they aren't grafted in, there is no sap flowing into them.
And no sap means zero fruit,
None.
which brings us right to the core command of this passage.
Yeah.
Because if the connection is everything, then maintaining that connection is the only thing that actually matters. Jesus says, abide in me.
The Greek word is meno.
Let's talk about that word, meno. Because abide is one of those words that sounds very churchy.
It is a stained glass word.
It sounds like something you do while wearing a monk's robe in a monastery. What does it actually mean in plain language?
It is a very humble, concrete word in Greek. It just means to remain, to stay put, to dwell, to take up permanent residence.
It is the complete opposite of just visiting.
Right. It is not a weekend trip to a hotel. It is a marriage. It is a settled address where you live your life.
But we need to be careful here because people tend to pour their own modern meanings into this word.
They really do. And the sources we reviewed are very helpful in defining what abiding is not.
Let's run through the negatives first. What is it not?
First off, it is not mysticism.
Okay, define that. Because I think a lot of listeners hear abide in me, and they immediately picture sitting in a dark, quiet room, emptying their mind, and just waiting for a spiritual shiver.
Right. They are essentially chasing an impression, a subjective feeling. They say things like, I really felt God today.
Which is fine, but
It is fine, but feelings are completely volatile. They go up and down depending on your blood sugar or how much sleep you got last night or traffic.
if abiding depends on you feeling a spiritual buzz, then you are going to be in and out of the vine 10 times a day.
Exactly. Jesus is not commanding a mood.
He is not commanding a mood.
He is commanding a position. You stay put, regardless of how you happen to feel on a Tuesday morning.
Okay, so it isn't mysticism. What is the second error?
The second error is passivity.
Is this the whole let go and let God idea?
Yes, that is a very popular bumper sticker slogan. Just let go and let God.
It sounds very pious, very humble.
It sounds like you are surrendering, but if you take it literally as a theology, it is total poison.
Why is it poison?
Because it implies that you shouldn't actually do anything, that human effort is somehow fleshly or bad. But just look at the agricultural metaphor Jesus is using. Does a branch just hang there doing nothing?
No, it pushes out leaves. It pushes out heavy grapes.
There is intense biological activity happening.
So the Christian life involves real effort.
Massive, strenuous effort. We strive, we run the race, we fight the good fight. But, and this is the vital distinction, the source of the energy for that effort is not us.
It is the sap.
The branch works, but it works only because the life of the vine is driving it from the inside out. It is dependent effort.
I think Dallas Willard said something like, grace is not opposed to effort. It is opposed to earning.
That is a brilliant way to phrase it.
So I work hard,
Yeah.
but I don't work to create the spiritual life. I work because I already have the life flowing into me.
Right. You are operating from life, not for life. And that leads to the third error, which is perfectionism.
Perfectionism.
Right.
This is for the person listening right now who thinks, I lost my temper with my kids this morning, so I must not be abiding. I have totally severed the connection.
We have all felt that shame. The voice that says, I blew it, I failed, so I need to hide from God until I clean myself up.
But abiding actually means the opposite of hiding.
It means when you blow it, you don't run away, you run to the vine.
You don't make peace with this sin.
No, you bring the sin directly to the vine for cleansing and forgiveness. A branch might get battered by a severe storm, it might get bent or twisted by the wind, but it holds onto the trunk.
It doesn't detach itself just because it took a hit.
That is right.
So if abiding isn't sitting in the dark, and it isn't doing nothing, and it isn't being completely flawless, how do we actually do it? What are the practical mechanics of abiding?
Jesus gives us the clear answer just a couple of verses later in verse 7. He says, if you abide in me, and my words abide in you.
My words, the word.
It is word-shaped.
Yeah.
This is where the Reformed tradition is so incredibly helpful. We talk a lot about the ordinary means of grace.
We don't need to invent new spiritual technologies or flashy programs.
We abide by letting the scriptures dwell in us richly.
So when I sit down and open my Bible in the morning, even if I am exhausted, even if I don't feel any kind of emotional zap, I am actively abiding.
You are intaking the mind of Christ. That is the connection point. And that intake naturally leads to prayer. Jesus follows up by saying, ask whatever you wish and it will be done for you.
Now, hold on a second. That sounds like a blank check. Ask whatever you wish. Can I ask for a Ferrari? Can I ask for my favorite team to win the championship?
You can physically say the words, but if you are truly abiding, you probably won't ask for those things. Why not? Because the condition for that promise is if my words abide in you. If the word of Christ is completely saturating your mind and your heart, it fundamentally changes what you want.
Your desires shift.
You stop wanting the Ferrari and you start wanting patience. You start wanting the ability to love your difficult neighbor. You start wanting the things that God himself wants.
So the prayer just becomes an echo of God's own heart back to him.
It aligns your will with his will perfectly over time, and then flowing right out of that there is obedience. Jesus says, if you keep my commandments, you will abide in my love.
That sounds a bit like a transaction, though, doesn't it? If you obey, then I will love you.
It is not a condition for the relationship to exist in the first place. It is a condition for the enjoyment of the relationship.
Okay, unpack that.
Think about a human marriage. If I completely ignore my wife, if I am consistently rude to her, if I never listen to a word she says, am I still married to her?
Legally, yes.
Legally, the covenant is still intact. But am I abiding in her love? Am I enjoying the warmth and intimacy of that union?
No. You are living like a hostile stranger in your own house.
Precisely. So obedience is how we experience the closeness of Christ.
It is how we stay in the active flow of his love.
Theologians refer to this as the third use of the law. The moral law guides our gratitude. We obey because we are already deeply loved, not to convince God to love us.
That makes perfect sense. So we have the vine, we have the command to abide. Now let's talk about the result of all this, the output. Jesus says he it is that bears much fruit.
Much fruit. It is an absolute expectation of abundance.
I have to play devil's advocate here again.
Yeah.
Because in the modern church world, especially in the West, when we hear the word fruit, we immediately think of numbers.
We think of measurable success.
The industrial model. How many people are in the seats on Sunday? How many podcast downloads? How many converts this month?
Metric.
Right. So if I'm a pastor and my church attendance isn't growing, am I not abiding? If I have a Christian businessman and my company goes bankrupt, is that a lack of fruit?
That is a very dangerous, pragmatic way to read the Bible, because you can acquire all of those things, crowds, money, massive cultural influence, without Jesus.
A secular tech corporation can have explosive growth.
A cult can have explosive growth. You can build a massive religious organization relying entirely on human charisma, slick marketing, and really good coffee.
But that is not the fruit Jesus is talking about.
Not at all. The theological sources are unanimous here. Fruit is character. It is the moral profile of Jesus Christ reproduced in the life of the believer.
We are talking about Galatians 5.
Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness. Look at the immediate context of John 15. Jesus talks about my joy being in you. He talks about loving one another. He talks about laying down one's life for his friends.
So true fruit is internal before it is ever external.
It is inevitably external because love acts, but it starts with who you actually are. You can be a high-performing leader who is arrogant, harsh, and utterly impatient.
You might have results, but you don't have fruit.
You have what one of the sources called plastic grapes taped to a dead branch.
Plastic grapes taped to a dead branch. That is a haunting image.
It should keep us awake at night. We desperately need to distinguish between spiritual gifts and spiritual fruit.
Gifts versus fruit.
A man can have an incredible gift for public preaching. He can have a natural gift for visionary leadership. Those things are given by the Spirit for the functional sake of the church, but a man can exercise those public gifts while his private heart is miles away from God.
We see it all the time, sadly. The scandal of the celebrity pastor who suddenly falls.
He had massive gifts. He didn't have any fruit.
And real fruit takes time to grow, doesn't it?
That is the whole nature of the agricultural metaphor. You can build a brick wall in a single afternoon. You cannot force a grape to ripen in a day.
It requires changing seasons.
It requires rain, it requires the hot sun, and it requires the active work of the vine dresser.
Let's talk about him, the Father. Because his role in this analogy is, well, it is sharp.
He is holding a knife. Every branch that bears fruit, he prunes that it may bear more fruit.
That is the part nobody puts on the inspirational coffee mug. God wants to cut you.
But we have to understand the vast difference between the two types of cutting happening in this passage.
Okay, what are the two types?
There is the cutting off of the completely dead branch in verse 6. That is divine judgment. That is the fire.
That is the stinking grapes from Isaiah 5 being dealt with.
Right. But then there is the cutting of the living, fruit-bearing branch. That is pruning, and the motivation behind that blade is completely different.
It feels exactly the same to the branch, though. Pain is pain.
It feels the same in the moment, sure, but the intent is pure love. Pruning is not punishment.
I really need you to say that again.
Yeah.
Because when I am going through a season of suffering, my default setting is always, God is mad at me. What did I do wrong to deserve this?
That is the voice of karma talking. It is not the voice of the gospel. If you are genuinely in Christ, God's righteous anger was completely exhausted on the cross. There is zero punishment left for you.
So what is actually happening when the knife cuts?
The vine dresser is cultivating you.
Why does he have to cut, though? Why can't he just let us grow wild and free?
Have you ever actually seen a wild, unpruned grapevine?
I can't say that I have.
It is an absolute mess. It grows these long, spindly runner shoots in every direction. It produces a massive amount of big, green, leafy foliage.
So it looks lush.
It looks very impressive from the road, but the actual grapes are tiny, bitter, and sour. Why? Because the life energy of the plant is being entirely wasted on the foliage.
It is focused on outward appearance, not actual fruit.
Spot on. So the expert vine dresser comes along and he aggressively cuts back the sucker shoots. He cuts back all the useless overgrowth. He removes the things that are draining the life sap.
In our daily lives, what does that pruning actually look like?
It might be a career ambition that has slowly turned into an idol. You are pouring all your mental and emotional energy into climbing the ladder. And God says, this is stealing your heart from me. And he cuts it.
Maybe you get passed over for the promotion, or you lose the job entirely.
Or maybe it is a relationship that is subtly pulling you away from him. Or maybe it is just your physical health. He removes your illusion of self-sufficiency so that you are forced to rely entirely on the sap.
So the pain of pruning is actually a compliment from God.
It is a supreme sign of value. You don't bother pruning a random weed in the ditch. You prune a prize-winning rose bush. You prune a valuable vineyard.
The fact that he is actively working on you means he expects a harvest from you.
It totally reframes our suffering. It isn't abandonment. It is careful preparation.
It is intimate fatherly care.
Yes.
I'm going to pivot now to the second half of verse 5, because we have talked about the vine and the fruit and the pruning process, but then Jesus just drops the hammer. This is the phrase that always stops me dead in my tracks. Apart from me, you can do nothing.
The anatomy of nothing.
Now, I have to be the skeptic here again. Nothing, really. Because I look around the world and I see people who want absolutely nothing to do with Jesus doing some pretty amazing things.
Sure they are.
I mean, look at Elon Musk. He is building rockets that literally land themselves back on the launch pad. It isn't nothing.
No, it is incredible engineering.
Look at a brilliant surgeon who happens to be a staunch atheist. She walks into an operating room, meticulously repairs a human heart valve, and saves a life. That is a tangible, beautiful something.
It is a wonderful something.
So is Jesus just exaggerating here? Is he using hyperbole to make a spiritual point? Like you can't do much or you'll have a really hard time without me?
No, he means literally nothing. But we have to define our terms carefully here. If we don't, we end up in this weird fundamentalist space where we just deny observable reality.
So how do the sources handle this?
They make a vital distinction between what the reformers called civil good and spiritual fruit.
Okay, break that distinction down for us.
Civil good is purely horizontal. It is righteousness measured before other men. Can an atheist engineer build a suspension bridge that doesn't fall down? Yes. Can an unbeliever love his kids and provide for his family? Yes. Can someone who hates God write a breathtaking symphony? Yes.
And how is that possible if they are totally depraved?
Because of common grace.
They are still made in the image of God.
That is right. They have a functioning brain, they have logic, they have deep creativity. God generously gives those natural gifts to both the just and the unjust. But, and this is the massive theological, but those civil works have absolutely no eternal value in the kingdom of God.
They don't count at all.
They do not count as righteousness before the throne of God. They don't please God in any kind of saving or relational sense.
Why not? The bridge stays up, the heart valve works.
Because they aren't done for his ultimate glory, and they aren't done in conscious reliance on him.
So the atheist surgeon saves the physical life.
But if she does it for her own professional glory, or for a massive paycheck, or just out of humanitarian pride, while actively rejecting her creator, the act is socially useful. We are all very glad she did it.
But spiritually?
Spiritually, it is a dead work. It isn't fruit because it didn't grow from the vine.
That is a very heavy distinction.
It is the exact difference between a plastic apple and a real apple. A plastic apple can look completely perfect. It can sit in a nice bowl and decorate a dining room beautifully, but you can't eat it. It has zero actual life inside it. Jesus is talking exclusively about works that possess eternal life.
The Greek syntax in this phrase is pretty emphatic, isn't it?
It is incredibly strong. Korsimomophiu apart from me. And then Jesus uses a double negative, ou dines de poen uden.
Which translates literally as,
You are not able to do not one thing.
not one single thing.
It is an absolute unyielding verdict of human inability. And this connects directly back to the Reformed doctrine of total depravity.
I know that is a scary term for a lot of people to hear.
It is widely misunderstood. People hear total depravity, and they instinctively think it means every human being is as bad as they could possibly be. Like, everyone is secretly a serial killer.
But clearly, we aren't all as bad as we could be.
Right. Total depravity does not mean we are as bad as possible. It means the corruption of sin is total in its extent. It infects every single part of us, our mind, our will, our emotions, our desires.
The whole system is compromised.
And it means we are totally, completely unable to restore ourselves to spiritual life.
One of the sources used the battery versus branch analogy, and I thought that was incredibly helpful for visualizing this.
It is the best way to picture it. We constantly tend to live like batteries. We think, okay, I will go to church on Sunday mornings, sing some songs, listen to the sermon, get fully charged up, and then I will run on that spiritual charge for the rest of the week at work.
God, just give me a quick boost.
Give me strength to handle this annoying meeting on Tuesday. Give me patience for my toddlers. We treat God like a gas station and ourselves like the car. We want him to fill our tank so we can drive away and do our own thing.
But a branch does not work like a car or a battery.
A branch has zero storage capacity. None whatsoever. You cannot fill a branch with sap, cut it off from the trunk, put it on a shelf, and expect it to stay alive. It requires a continuous, moment-by-moment flow of life from the trunk.
So the very moment the connection is severed,
The life stops. Instantly. It might stay green for a day or two, and honestly, that is the most terrifying part. You can coast on past momentum, you can coast on your religious background or your vocabulary.
but internally, spiritually, you are already dead wood.
Completely dead.
This really destroys the whole self-made man myth that we love so much.
It totally incinerates it. There is simply no such thing as a self-made Christian. If you have any genuine love for God today, any slight desire to pray, any real kindness in your heart toward an enemy, you did not generate that yourself.
You didn't manufacture it in your own little spiritual factory.
It came directly from the sap. It is foreign righteousness working its way through you.
It creates a really profound sense of humility, doesn't it?
You cannot boast about anything. The Apostle Paul says, "What do you have that you did not receive?" If I am a fruitful branch, I can't look over at a barren branch and say, well, I guess I just tried a lot harder than you did.
No. You just stayed connected.
That is it. That is your only claim.
And there's a warning here that we absolutely cannot skip over. Verse 6. If anyone does not abide in me, he is thrown away like a branch and withers, and the branches are gathered, thrown into the fire, and burned.
The fire of divine judgment.
This is a diagnostic verse, isn't it?
It is a severe diagnostic. It warns us against the danger of a false profession of faith. There are people, we all know them, and maybe at times we have even been them, who look like they belong to the vine.
They are listed in the church directory.
They know all the right theological lingo. They are tied on with the twine of cultural Christianity.
But there is no actual fruit.
No internal change in character. No growing love for Christ. No real hatred of their own sin. Eventually, the dead wood is revealed for what it is. And Jesus says the ultimate destiny of the dead wood is the fire.
It is a sobering warning to examine our own hearts. Are we just hanging around near the vine, or are we organically in the vine?
We have to ask ourselves that question.
So we have covered this incredibly high theology: union with Christ, total inability, the absolute necessity of the vine. It is rigorous. It is a heavy theological lifting. But I really want to land the plane on practical application. How does this actually help the normal person listening right now?
Let's talk directly to the weary saint.
I really love that phrase, the weary saint, because there are a lot of people listening right now who are just bone tired.
They are exhausted.
They are trying so hard to be good Christians. They are volunteering at church. They are reading all the right books. They're trying to raise godly kids in a culture that feels like it has gone crazy. And they just feel weak. They feel like they are constantly failing.
John 15 is the absolute best news in the world for that specific person. Because notice very carefully what Jesus does not command here.
Right.
He does not look at us and say, be strong like a vine.
Wow. That is a massive relief.
He says, you are a branch. Think about the physical nature of a branch. It is thin, it is woody, It is incredibly fragile. If you step on a branch, it snaps in half.
It cannot even support its own weight, let alone the weight of a massive cluster of fruit.
So Jesus actually expects us to be weak.
He designed us to be weak.
That is the whole point of the metaphor. He isn't looking for you to be a spiritual powerhouse. He is the powerhouse. He is looking right at you and saying, I know you are totally empty. I know you are exhausted. That is exactly why I am here.
I don't need your strength. I need your connection.
It takes all the crushing pressure of religious performance right off your shoulders. You do not have to manufacture the life. You just have to sit there and receive it.
It's like yelling at a swimmer who is drowning in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. You don't say, swim harder.
You say, stop trying to swim to shore. Just grab the life raft and hold on for dear life.
So our daily prayer changes drastically. Instead of waking up and saying, God, please make me strong enough to handle everything today,
It becomes, God, I absolutely cannot do this today. You have to do it through me. Flow through me.
that is the honest prayer of the branch.
Yes.
Now, what about the corporate church? We talked briefly about the industrial model earlier, but if we take John 15 seriously as congregations, how does it change the way we actually do church on a Sunday?
It demands a radical return to simplicity. The sources we looked at are highly critical of the seeker-sensitive movement and the entertainment model of modern church.
The fog machines, the
Yeah.
laser lights, the concert atmosphere.
We have convinced ourselves that if we just create the perfect sensory atmosphere, if we market the sermon series correctly, we can somehow create spiritual life in the room.
But we're just taping more plastic grapes onto dead branches.
It looks fantastic from a distance. The parking lot is full, but it does not feed a single soul. One of the old preachers used to say, you can entertain a goat with a light show, but you can only feed a sheep with the pure word of God.
So the call is to abandon the gimmicks and go back to the ordinary means.
Word, sacrament, and prayer. It isn't flashy. It isn't going to win any cultural awards for innovation, but it is the literal channel where the sap flows.
The Lord's Supper fits so perfectly right here.
It is the ultimate visual aid for John 15. Why do we physically eat bread and drink wine? We are physically acting out the spiritual reality that we have zero life in ourselves.
We have to take life in from the outside.
We have to feed on Christ. We consume him by faith.
It is a visible, tangible word of total dependence.
Spot on. A church that fiercely centers on these simple things, preaching the text of the Bible, praying desperately together, taking the sacraments, is a church that is actually setting itself up for real, lasting fruit.
It might grow a lot slower than the megachurch down the street giving away free iPads to first-time visitors.
It probably will grow slower, but the fruit will remain.
That is the key phrase, isn't it? Fruit that remains.
Not a superficial flash in the pan, not an emotional high that fades by Tuesday, but enduring, rock-solid character.
So as we start to wrap this deep dive up, let's synthesize everything we've talked about. The mission today was to look at John 15, verse 5, not as a cute coffee mug verse, but as a sober verdict on reality.
And the final verdict is simply this: you are not the source. You are only the channel.
The nothing in apart from me you can do nothing is absolute. There are no exceptions. But it is meant to paralyze us in fear.
No, it is meant to drive us into his arms. Think of it like the physical law of gravity. You don't sit around complaining about gravity. You align your life with it.
You respect it.
Once you finally accept the reality that you can do absolutely nothing on your own, you can finally stop trying to be your own savior. You stop pretending to be the vine.
You finally rest in the one who can actually do everything.
That is the freedom of the gospel.
I want to leave our listeners with a final concluding thought. Something to really chew on as you drive to work today or fold the laundry.
Here's what I would say to you. The world is constantly screaming at you to prove yourself. Every television advertisement, every demanding boss, every single social media post is loudly whispering, justify your existence by your output. Show us what you can produce.
It is an utterly exhausting way to live.
But Christ makes a completely different promise to you. He does not stand over you and say, prove yourself. He simply says, abide in me. And if you do that, he promises to prove his own life through you. He takes the entire burden of proof onto himself. Your only job is just to stay put.
That is a tremendous word of hope. Thank you for walking through that with us. And thank you all for listening to this deep dive on Reformed thinking. We sincerely hope this discussion helps you stop striving in your own strength and start abiding in his. Until next time.